so I don't forget so many things. For those that check out this YouTube live or YouTube video or Google Hangout, what do you want to call it? I'm covering Meetings Suck by Cameron. Okay. And as always, feel free to jump in, feel free to ask questions, feel free to share your own experiences. That is well advised if you join us here on live. Or just find one of our videos on Facebook or YouTube or the interwebs. So per usual, what I like to do is I like to read through this book. I will be the first to tell you that I did not finish this book. As small as it is, I got about just over 3/4 of the way through. And then, getting back from the holidays, I just haven't found time to finish it. So we'll go through what I've read so far from Meetings Suck. And hopefully there'll be a few tidbits of information. And if not, well, too bad. The next book I read just may have something. Hey, Serge. Hey, Julie. Hey, John. Thanks for joining us on Facebook Live. What up? So the first part of the book, it starts by kind of making a case for why meetings kind of suck, or sort of reasons for us to start to look at meetings a little bit differently. Sorry, I'm pouring some tea over here at the same time, so I can stay a little hydrated. And so the one that stuck out the most was a financial argument for making meetings better. So it says here, plus it makes financial sense when you consider the cost of running a typical hour-long meeting. If you have 10 employees, each who make $70,000 a year, or roughly $35 an hour, which is roughly, it works out to be about $350 for an hour-long meeting with these 10 people. They say that, in fact, the average meeting cost is about $500 to $1,000. So you have to factor in things like stop work 15 minutes before, right? So they quit whatever they're doing to go to this meeting. They sit down in the meeting, and then it'll take 15, 20, maybe half an hour after they've left the meeting to get going on whatever it is that they left off on. So there's a lot of sort of missed opportunity there that you don't sort of factor into, that you wouldn't think is involved in sort of that 1 hour meeting. So with that in mind, whether it's $250 or $350 or $500 or $1,000, if you think about it that way, you certainly want to get through a meeting a hell of a lot quicker. And so how do you do that? And that's kind of where this book really takes off, is it starts to show you examples for how you can go about making your meetings more effective and quicker, and just in general less painless. Like, you should go to a meeting and you should leave it feeling stoked and energized and ready to kind of conquer the world, if you will. And most of us do not feel that way, like, ever. So as managers, as leaders, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, as meeting organizers, we have to do a better job. The onus is on us to do a better job of not wasting other people's time, but also not wasting our money. And, in some situations, their money, because their time is their money, right? So reading on. And again, if you're just joining us, I'm reading from Meetings Suck. It's by Cameron Herold. It's a small read. Crappy, slow reader. I would have read the entire thing by now, but such is life. Another key principle is the agenda. This is a must-have to understand the flow of a meeting, to stay on topic, and to save time. Truthfully, if you or your people attend a meeting that wastes your time, or if you aren't providing value, then it's better to have skipped, called sick, or stayed at your desks finishing your work. I think should be on my Facebook page. I shared an example of, why don't I pull it up right now? Because I think it's kind of helpful. I shared an example. I bet you it's not here. I bet you it's somewhere else. So I'll post it tomorrow. I've already written it, and it basically just sort of it breaks down this structure that they're proposing, which is, I'm trying to remember. It's kind of like what's going to be accomplished by the end of the meeting, essentially. So what are the objectives? I think that is actually is the title for it. What are the to-dos? So what are the discussion items, essentially? What do you have to talk about? And then finally, discussion items. And then finally, the to-dos. And so you send this out well in advance of a meeting, right? I'm going to be covering this a little bit later, but so you cover this before a meeting, send people their to-dos so that they come prepared to the meeting, so that there isn't this, rifling through papers and pulling up stuff on your phone or trying to recall. You come to a meeting, you're prepared, you're ready to go. It's boom, 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 right? You can save a significant amount of time by having a proper agenda and allowing your people to opt in or out of meetings to which they do not feel they can add value. So to a frontline employee doesn't necessarily need to be at every employee. He or she may have other more important or impactful things to work on, which is basically to say that I would implement this like, we work in sprints, which is basically a period of time where work is done. And if you were involved in that sprint, if you were involved in that work effort, then it's sort of expected that you would, show up and contribute. However, be very easily made for people who, they've done their tasks, they've done them done them perfectly, and there really should be no questions for them, right? So really, I guess, the only reason they would show up is just, for camaraderie and support and all that kind of stuff. So I can certainly appreciate that, but involved in that sprint, if they weren't involved in that work effort, whatever it may be, then there's absolutely no reason to waste their time. And I think a lot of meetings are like, just get everybody together without any thought towards needs to be there, whether they could be doing something more impactful, more productive. Something to think about as you're planning your next meeting. Moving onwards. So I remember in this book, as I was reading through it, there were a lot of things that I highlighted that were kind of specific to me or specific to where my weaknesses were, or things that I was missing or not doing as well as I could. So bear with me if this doesn't really jive with what you're up to. But certainly it's, there's a selfish aspect to these little readings that I do. I get to learn this material a little bit better, right? So monthly financial meetings. These meetings get your team on the same financial page. Here, employees will have the opportunity to review the company's income statement, obsess over how to make more money, and find savings. These meetings not only provide a level of transparency that makes everyone feel secure, but they teach your team valuable lessons about finance. Definitely something I want to do. I know there's lots of arguments for why or how transparent one should be with their team with regards to finances and how much you're making essentially and how much everybody else is making and all that kind of stuff. But I think there's a happy medium there where nobody feels weird about anything. And that may just be that you share sort of the cost of goods sold, so expenses, and then revenue without showing how much is going out to each person and all those kinds of things, as well as like you can break down the expenses certainly into like tools that you pay money for, or even like utilities and things like that. I think a lot of people, when you're working in a team, you kind of take that stuff for granted. You don't think about, okay, well, you're probably thinking, oh, that the CEO makes so much money, but no, the company has to pay out utilities. And really a lot of CEOs, and certainly myself especially, I get paid once all that stuff is paid. Then I get to pay. I get paid last, which is there are arguments against that as well, but that's just how I do it. Weekly goal setting and review meetings. So as far as the financial meetings go, I'm definitely going to be doing that as soon as I possibly can. I just need to figure out how best to do it. Does a good job of that. I think Moz has like complete financial transparency, or at least that's what I believe they claim. Weekly goal setting and review meetings. These meetings, otherwise known as one-on-one, occur between a leader and the person who directly reports to that leader. In my experience, this is the most consequential type of meeting because it allows the leader to set goals for the upcoming week to establish a rhythm and focus for team members. These meetings help motivate and inspire, and simultaneously they provide employees with the support system and necessary tools they need to create change. So that might be like me meeting with Serge, or me meeting with sort of head of SEO, Alex, because each of them have folks that sort of kind of report to them, right? And me sort of making the time, and I try to on Slack, but I know I don't do a good job of it, to sort of address anything that's coming up, in their sprints or in their blockages, things that block their ability to execute and meet sort of our quarterly goals or whatever it may be. Me taking the time to meet with them and address those things would be important. But also, we talked about earlier, the book, The Alliance, right? So there's a deal between team and teammate, or team leader and teammate. And so it would kind of be a great opportunity as well to check in and see if together we're moving towards those goals. My goal of what I want them to do for our organization, and perhaps their goal, where perhaps they want to work elsewhere for a bigger company and they need the experience to get there and that kind of thing. So that'd be a good opportunity to take advantage of that. And those things are so easy to forget about. You just get busy and you don't think about these things. You just think about the work, you think about delivering to clients, and you forget that your team needs help as well, right? Moving on. CEOs, managers, and employees. And forgive me for those that watch the YouTube live or the YouTube recording. I'm often, what I should do is I should just move this little camera here. I should move it right next to, how do I do this and not, something like that. And then I'm looking at the same camera. Otherwise, everybody on that watches the YouTube only sees the side of my face. And that's not my good angle. Leaders, the CEO, other C-suite officers, executives, and lost responsibilities with 3 resources at their disposal to achieve their goal. Oh my goodness, I highlighted everything here. Bear with me. I'm a terrible reader. People, time, and money. Here, let me read that again before I rudely interrupt it. Leaders, the CEO, other C-suite executives, so CTO, COO, so on and so forth, executives have profit and loss responsibilities with 3 resources at their disposal to achieve their goals: people, time, and money. They apply these resources as carefully as if they were held at gunpoint, so as to ensure that everything is spent wisely and nothing is wasted. If their people attend meetings without adding or receiving any value, then they've wasted their 3 resources: people, time, and money. In fact, if we multiply the number of days, weeks, and months in a year that someone spends in a meeting, then the business could face a loss of up to 20% of that person's salary because of that time, because of time spent in useless meetings. Imagine what you could do with that 20% if it was used wisely versus completely wasted. The goal of middle managers is to move up in the organization. So they're trying to grow as leaders. One way to accomplish this is to show they're effective at leveraging the resources they have access to. The better they run meetings, the more they will accomplish. The more they accomplish, the more they will push forward. The more they push forward, the more output they will generate from their resources. The more output they generate from their resources, the more they will showcase their leadership abilities and their potential to climb the ranks in the organization. So it's in middle managers' best interest to get good at meetings. One moment, my computer is dying. There we go. And while I'm at it, I'm going to plug in my iPhone so that it too doesn't die throughout this little taping. Forgive my disorganization. I don't even have a YouTube cable, or I don't even have an iPhone cable. It won't die. It's got lots of juice left. All right. Oh, that's a little bit oversteep. That tastes strong. That's 2-day-old tea. Yikes. All right. So as I was saying, it is a middle manager's job to manage people, time, and money. Those are the resources that they manage. And so their ability to manage those resources, their movement within the organization greatly depends on their ability to manage well those resources. And when you have people wasting time in meetings, you are wasting both or all three of those resources and effectively not doing a good job. For frontline staff, it's good to go into meetings recognizing the chance to stand out among their peers, especially within larger organizations. It's easy to feel like a number and to blend into the crowd. The meeting can be a fishbowl or a stage for their career. It can show they're dialed in or buttoned up. It can show they're respectful or unable to listen and work with people. The meeting is their chance to show they can lead up in the organization. Really, it's their chance to show their stuff to people that they can help, to show their stuff to people that can help their career trajectory. So by providing an agenda, you're giving these people an opportunity, these frontline workers, these frontline staff, an opportunity to come prepared to a meeting and thus really show their stuff, to perform in the meeting and do, how often does it happen where somebody's sitting in a meeting and doesn't say anything, right? Had they perhaps been given an agenda, maybe it's, you have your introverts and your extroverts, right? You've got an introvert who is highly skilled, but because they're introverted, they don't speak up at a meeting. And so you, as a leader, as a manager, as somebody who's leading that meeting, don't get an opportunity to see them shine. However, if you had given them an opportunity by providing an agenda to prepare before coming to the meeting, then they're much more likely to show you what they've got, and thus you'll be better prepared to flex that muscle that you otherwise may not have known existed because you didn't provide an agenda. You didn't provide an opportunity for them to show you, to excel. Missed opportunity indeed. Here's an example. Say Bob's time. I love these financial examples. They're very helpful. They kind of drive home the point that I need to do this or else I am just wasting. Say Bob's time is worth $50 an hour. Would you burn up a $50 bill? Of course not. If Bob's coming to the meeting, you want to ensure you get $50 worth of value from him. Otherwise, you're better off having him do something other than attend the meeting. This is true for every person that attends a meeting. If it's happening on your time, it's happening on your dime. See what they did there? See that little rhyme? CEOs live this motto, and by adopting the CEO mindset, you will place yourself in a position to adopt this philosophy too. I don't think anything else can be added to that. You wouldn't burn a $50 bill, would you? So why would you waste somebody's time? Moving on. That whole introvert part, I got that from somewhere. That wasn't just my genius. That comes from here. When it comes to your more introverted team members, analyticals, and amiables, more often than not, they won't speak up unless you ask them a question directly or they're passionate and engaged in a subject. Giving them an agenda in advance allows them the time they need to think through answers, frame their thoughts, write them down, prepare a statement, or whatever else they need to do to raise their ideas. If an agenda is not given to these individuals ahead of time, you will likely lose great ideas that will remain unspoken and will walk up of the room with them when the meeting is finished. That's waste on top of waste. We already talked about that. I don't need to go into that. Time is maximized. When you include how long each item is up for discussion, this helps you realize whether you've allocated too much or too little time for certain subjects. Plus, if an agenda item is scheduled for 3 minutes and you know the next one is for 15 minutes, then you can control your time, the flow of ideas, and communication more efficiently. So what we do is, what I've started to do rather, is when I go into a meeting with a client, I give them all the discussion items. So the objectives, the discussion items, and each discussion item has like time in a bracket. So it might be 5 min, or it might be 3 min, or it might be 10 min, or it might be 15 min. And it's my job, although I think in this book they recommend that you sort of assign a time tracker to this job, but it would be my job as the individual organizing the meeting to make sure that we keep to that time, essentially, that we don't go over that time, that we have enough time for the next tasks that come, and that we don't go over in the meeting. So by allocating these little time slots, everybody knows, right? It's like you don't book open-ended meetings. You set time for a meeting, right? So why shouldn't you do the same thing with topics that are a part of that meeting, if that makes sense? Moving on. I firmly believe it's vital only to invite individuals for the portion of the agenda for which they are needed. This is super weird. I don't even know how we would do this. I can't even imagine. And in a normal work environment where, my work environment is not normal, it's, everybody's all over the world kind of thing. But in a typical work environment where people are sitting at desks in the same office, having someone get up and leave, and then another person get up and leave, I would imagine it'd be kind of disruptive, but maybe not. When you're creating your agenda, it's helpful to ask 2 questions about your attendees. Do I need to have all these people I'm thinking about inviting? So that goes back to inviting only the people that actually need to be in the meeting. Do these people need to sit through the entire meeting, or do I only need them for a portion of the meeting on a particular subject? So it may be what I can sort of imagine doing. What I imagine doing is basically putting their name by a particular topic of discussion. And perhaps instead of putting like 3 minutes, in addition to that, let's say the meeting starts at 12 noon, at 12:05, we're going to talk about their subject. So they need to be there by 12:05, or so on and so forth. And with a quick meeting, like a 15-minute meeting, then maybe that's not such a big deal. But with meetings lasting an hour, somebody who talks about something for the first 5 minutes and then really has nothing to contribute for the remainder of the meeting, not really much sense in them being there, is there? Moving on. I mentioned this earlier, but imagine that everyone who shows up represents $50. It doesn't sound like a lot, but if you invite the wrong 2 people, or 2 people come to an unnecessary meeting every day, then you've wasted $100 and prevented 2 people from providing more value by remaining at their desk. So think opportunity costs and getting their work done. Say this happens once a day. That's $100 a day multiplied by 250 operating days. That's $25,000 a year that disappeared because you invited the wrong people to the meeting. And again, that's not including the opportunity cost, what they could have contributed to the organization had they not been at that meeting. That's not including potential disgruntledness that can arise from inviting people that have no business being in that meeting, and they have to sit there and they're unhappy, and then they leave, and then you have to hire new people, and so you have to pay a recruiter, and then you have to train them, and that takes time. It's a lot of wasted money. So think about who you invite to your next meeting. One of the best ideas I've heard on the subject of resource saving comes from Amazon.com founder Jeff Bezos, who said he would never hold a meeting in which 2 pizzas couldn't feed the entire group. That's brilliant. If you go beyond the 2 pizza max as you build your agenda, then you know to split this meeting into separate ones. We never have meetings that big, so I can't really speak much to that. One pizza would probably fit a typical meeting that we have, but nevertheless, something to keep in mind. I was at a new client's office the other day, and it's a big law firm, and they had 4 tables that they put together in the middle of the room. And then, so 4 big fucking boardroom tables that they put all together, and then they put chairs all around them. And the way they had it originally set up, it looked like a classroom essentially. And that they were saying that a typical meeting, they would, have, they would have each one of these seats filled. And I mean, you're talking about lawyers, right? So you're talking about people who bill out at minimum $250 an hour. I'm assuming that's probably what they bill the organization. They probably bill out to other people at $500 an hour or more. But in any event, damn, that's expensive. Sometimes you won't need people to participate for the entire meeting. When this occurs, your invitation to them can be, come in, give us your 4 data points, and then you're free to leave. Or come in and listen to what we're thinking and tell us if it can be done, then leave. That doesn't seem so bad. Remember, I was trying to sort of imagine what that might look like, or how disruptive that may or may not be. That's not so bad. I think I can handle that. And again, I'm not in a typical work environment, so that really wouldn't bother me at all, quite honestly. But in any event, people learn to opt out. Providing an agenda before the meeting makes people feel like there's a good reason for them to attend. But giving people the agenda yeah, okay, I'm reading it right. Just sounds a little funny. But giving people the agenda before the meeting also gives people the chance to opt out if they don't feel like they can provide or extract value. This is a great skill to teach people because you want them to evaluate and decide how best they can serve and provide value to the organization. You also want them to think about the value of $1, but also the value of their time so they appreciate themselves more. That they, so that they don't waste their time, so that they don't waste the organization's dime. That's an excellent way to teach folks. But sometimes opting out isn't all or nothing. People may come for either the entire meeting or none of it. When you send out an agenda, topics, and the duration of for each item, then people can look at it and say, hey, there's an hour's worth of time allocated, and we're covering 7 topics. It looks like only items 3 and 4 are valuable, so I will just show up for those points. Or they can say, I will come at the beginning, but I will leave right after item 4, skipping items 5, 6, and 7 so I can get back to doing my other work. When people make these choices, we should cheer them for their decision to stay focused on their responsibilities and priorities instead of becoming involved in everything. They're looking through the lens of how best to generate value for the company through their time and resources. And this is exactly what we want to encourage our people to do. Fair enough. Although it's often the right decision, opting out requires a delicate touch. You need to explain your reason for choosing to skip a meeting. Maintaining tone of respect is crucial for your career. So not sending an email saying not showing up is probably not good enough. Sending an email, again, you have the opportunity to send an email because the team leader, the meeting organizer has provided a agenda in advance, so you know sort of the composition of that particular meeting. Sending an email and saying, hey, not much here for me. However, it looks like that first item I'd like to listen in on, and so they show up for the first, and then they peace out. Moving on. Finally, opting out also applies to the CEO and other senior leaders. Why show up to a meeting when your team is perfectly capable of handling it? It also shows your team that you trust them, and that's always a good thing. Moving on, your team comes prepared. When you include the meeting style, information, so these are the three, I believe, meeting styles: information sharing, creative discussion, or consensus decision in the agenda, then you tell your team what to expect and how best to prepare. Oh, perfect. So I don't actually have to show you necessarily. So I said earlier on, again, this is the book we're reading from. So anybody who's joining us late, Meetings Suck by Cameron Herold. Top as well. So I was talking about earlier what this agenda would look like essentially, and mine looks a little bit different now because I've played with it a little bit, but I think it's a pretty good example. I don't know if this is going to be all that easy to see. Let's see, and I'll show it up top as well in just a moment. So you've got the outcomes, what you're going to get from the meeting. And they've called it the agenda, but I called it the discussion items. And then what's missing here is the to-do items. So basically the things that you need to do before you turn up at the meeting. Again, up here, outcome, objectives or agenda. And you can see the time, right? You see the time limit. And under here, I would have like to-dos. But I think it gets to that in a little bit. Excuse me. All right. There's a saying that they use in this book: no agenda, no attenda. Which obviously means no agenda, I'm not attending, is my motto. This is mandatory. If I don't receive an agenda, I won't go to your meeting, and neither should you or your employees. Keep your agenda simple, short, and sweet. It should be so brief that it could be written on a Post-it note. Ah, I forgot about that point. My agendas are massive. You don't need reams and reams of content. People don't have the time for it. Use normal black and white colors and skip fancy fonts. Include a bulleted list of action items to be discussed in the order they will be addressed, the time allotted to each topic, and the meeting style chosen. Again, we were talking about meeting styles before: information sharing, creative discussion, which would be like a brainstorm, and consensus discussion. Rather, consensus decision. So coming to a consensus on something. Again, we provide those so that people know what kind of meeting they are showing up at, so that they may be prepared for that type of meeting. One prepares for a brainstorm a little bit differently than an important consensus decision meeting. On your agenda, you will also want to include two other key components: the purpose and possible outcomes. So that's that top part there. This is the purpose, rather. And this is the possible outcomes, or the outcomes. It's going to look like garbage on the video. I apologize. I will post an example, my own example later. Now, mind you, mine's not as good as theirs because it's a little bit too lengthy, but I'm playing with it. Going on, the purpose of the meeting is one sentence included on the agenda that tells people exactly why they're asked to attend. So it might just be the subject of an email, perhaps. Then you should lay out up to 3 possible outcomes for the meeting. I suggest 1 purpose and 3 outcomes, because if you attempt to cover more, too many get invited on too many tangential topics and time is wasted. There is a way to keep meetings shorter to maximize efficiency and provide greater impact. So you start adding too many objective items, and what happens is too many people then end up showing up to the meeting, because if you're going to talk about all these things, then there's likely more people involved in whatever those things are. So keep it to 3. Keep it to 3 items, 3 discussion items, 3 outcomes rather. Keep your, Recently, I've toyed with adding a 4th item to my agendas, a to-do task list. I'd include this at the bottom of the agenda. It could include a list of material to read or prep work to be done prior to the meeting. This would spur attendees to think about the meeting and the topics before they arrive, so they can show up with ideas or, if applicable, have relevant background information in advance. It's funny, as I read more and more of these damn books, like I feel like once I get to like 100 books or something, it'll feel like I'm reading the same book over and over again, or they're saying, you know, a lot of the same things over and over and again. The one that pops out here, and they don't explicitly say it, but we create these agendas, of course, because we're trying to plan ahead, and we plan ahead because we know for every 10 minutes of planning that we do, we save 2 hours approximately. And we also know that if we plan at least, you know, the day ahead, for example, like for a meeting, if you plan the day ahead of a meeting, then we know that during our sleep, we actually tackle a lot of these problems and solve a lot of these questions while we're sleeping. So when we wake up, we're actually further along. We are better prepared to answer these questions, to stand up in front of a meeting. Again, for introverts who aren't great at standing in front of a crowd, an agenda is an awesome opportunity to kind of get to work on a problem, even if you're not actually you know, physically doing something or writing something. It's just, it kind of, my therapist likes to say, she says it soaks in it sort of drips through your sponge of a brain. And it's the same thing, right? You give that person or those people the opportunity to start to work on something, even if they don't know that they're actually working on it, but they are in their subconscious state. So I like that to-do. I like creating a little to-do. And oftentimes there are things that need to be done before a meeting should commence. So big believer in that. Though I can't claim to have done this a ton of times yet. I'm still working on that. That's kind of the idea, right, behind all these books is I am accountable to you to read 1 book a week. I'm a terrible reader, as I will mention many times. So I'm super slow at reading it. So it kind of gives me a kick in the ass to get going. And I'm the type of person that'll read a page and will have to read it again in order to absorb basically anything. So this kind of gives me an opportunity to read over it again, right? So thank you for allowing me to indulge. No, I don't know where I left off. Let's see. I think I'm here. Excuse me. In an information sharing meeting. Okay, so now they're talking about the different types of meeting. Remember, we talked about there were 3 different types of meetings, and I'm having to go back because I've already forgotten what they were. Well, let me try. There's an information sharing meeting. There's a consensus decision meeting, and then there's the middle one, which is, I think they don't call it a brainstorm, but it's basically what it is. I think it's like creative discussions. So those are the 3 types. So now they're going to break down those 3 types so that we can get a better understanding for what those are, so that when we label them, when we label the agenda, when we tell people what kind of meeting they're showing up for, they can come prepared. In an information sharing meeting, the information flows in one direction. That Direction can flow upward from employees to leadership. It can flow downward from senior management to employees, or it can flow side to side among employees or the same rung of company hierarchy. Often this style is used for weekly updates, like a stand-up or something like that, to share new ideas or provoke feedback. The key with this style, though, is it's a one-way flow of information without discussion, debate, or a decision reached by the group. No decisions are to be made. That's what the consensus decision meeting is for. This is not that. This is just an information sharing. In fact, this may be more like a brainstorm than the creative discussion, but let's read on and let's find out for ourselves. People should be allowed to ask questions for clarification, but this is in no way an invitation to engage in back and forth conversation or dialogue. It is just sharing of information. So it might be like, I imagine like a stand-up meeting, you just essentially share, what maybe you accomplished yesterday, what you're working on today, and what you hope to accomplish by end of day. Like that would be an information sharing. There's no dialogue there necessarily, though someone might have a question. Maybe somebody who's going to be involved in the next steps of that particular task may have a question for that person. So at that time, it would be a perfect opportunity to ask that person a question. But it's not, the purpose isn't to engage in dialogue. The purpose isn't to make decisions. It's just to share information so that everybody knows what everybody else is doing, perhaps. Moving on to the creative discussion. The creative discussion style revolves around brainstorming with the goal to place lots of ideas on the table. This isn't about making a decision or debating the viability of each idea. It's about embracing possibilities. As a leader, this style allows you to accumulate a wealth of ideas. It's a brainstorm, I was right, that may have previously remained unknown. When they aren't told in advance that a meeting is to share their ideas without reaching a decision, many will feel upset. I kind of jumped there. So this is a brainstorm. It's just a sort of an opportunity to kind of jam on some ideas. And so it goes on, and I kind of jumped here. When they aren't told in advance that a meeting is to share their ideas without reaching a decision, many will feel upset. So it's important to know what kind of meeting you are attending, because otherwise, how can you come prepared? If a decision is to be made, then how do you come prepared enough with the data that you may require to come to that decision if you didn't know, if you thought it was a brainstorming session, right? So it's really important. Consensus decision. This is the decision-making type of meeting. So let's suppose you needed to decide on a color palette for a new design. You've already shared all colors. You shared a whole bunch of colors. The client has already, picked some of their favorites, and now it's about deciding, the 3 colors that you'll carry forward into the theme that you're developing for WordPress. I don't know. In this style, is in fact made by the people in the room. Ideally, this unifies people as a team, since everyone feels that they have had a hand in making the decision, even if they disagree with the final results. They feel empowered. They feel like it was their idea. It's always a good thing. I always like to make people think that it was their idea. It's how I flank people. It's critical that invitees understand that their voice is welcome and will be heard. Everyone should leave such a meeting with the relief that they spoke their piece. I have one rule when using this style. Once the meeting is over, discussion on the matter is closed. I want my people to leave the room knowing they reached the decision as a team. Quibbling in the halls chews away at team unity. Not a bad rule. Although I'm trying to imagine how that will keep people from quibbling, but if their idea didn't get picked or something like that. But in any event, we're almost done actually. 6:18. Holy crap! So that tells you how damn good this book was. That I have so many of these little stickies. That's at least how I measure how good it is how many stickies I have and how long it takes me to work through them. This is some good stuff. Punctuality is not so much a virtue, which suggests it's in some way above and beyond what's required. Rather, it reflects a larger philosophy of showing respect. Sorry I'm late translates in business as screw you, I don't respect you. Danny, I'm really sorry. Danny's our videographer. I was late for our meeting today. I respect you, Danny. Traffic, man, it always gets me, which means I'm not planning ahead enough. How can you expect to deliver goods and services to your customers in a timely fashion if you can't start a meeting on time? So how can you have the audacity to provide a product or sell a product to take someone's hard-earned marketing dollars or development dollars or whatever if your team can't even show up to a meeting on time with said client, or heck, even with the rest of your team members, right? It's really important. I've heard that before, actually. It's like if you don't show up on time, that means you don't respect somebody. You don't respect them enough to plan ahead. So it's important stuff. And it's up to you as a leader to set the expectation that being on time means showing up 5 minutes early and being ready to go. It's also up to you as an attendee to show your respect by sitting in your chair 5 minutes before the meeting starts. So one, you should be prepared. You should be on time as a leader, as a meeting organizer. And if you aren't, at the very least, you're showing a shit example for the rest of your team, right? And more than that, you're showing that you don't respect their time. They sit down and you're still getting prepared, which I do all the time. I'm terrible at it, and heck, I even did it today. Man, it's a good thing I read this book. Thanks. Moving on. So we're talking about healthy conflict. The one caveat to conflict is when it involves senior leaders arguing in front of the group. I know I highlighted this. Sometimes I'll explain it in a bit. Sometimes alignment must be displayed among the leadership team. The group needs to see that everyone is on the same page, even if differences need sorting. If that's the case, then sort these details out in a more private setting after the meeting. Leaders should not be quibbling in front of their teammates. Again, it sets a poor example, but I mean, as an employee, I can imagine seeing my leaders quibbling, and that would make me worry. Like, what kind of organization am I a part of here when these two can't, set aside their differences for this meeting and, speak about this elsewhere? It also gets people concerned about the direction of the company. If the CTO is thinking this and the CEO is thinking, something entirely different, who are they to follow? They need a unified front. That's the only way shit gets done anyways. So the reason I highlight it is I can remember a couple instances a few years ago where that happened on occasion. And it's just, at the very least, it's just not fucking professional. Encouraging all to participate. So what should you do when you have quieter, more reserved people in the meeting? We're touching on this again. The best thing you can do as a leader is first to hold your ideas back until the end. Too often, leaders offer their ideas first. And of course, when you do that, everybody agrees, or at least pretends to agree and shuts up and doesn't share their ideas because they assume that this is sort of the leader's bidding, and if that's what they say should be done, then that's what should be done. Too often leaders offer their ideas first, but people don't become confident or grow as leaders themselves. And you're trying to grow your team. You're trying to create leaders out of employees, and by not giving them the opportunity to, hey, Alex, to speak their mind, they'll never speak their mind. And again, we talked about it earlier, about that missed opportunity, about not giving introverts, excuse me, for example, the opportunity to show up prepared, right? You lose that voice, you lose that idea. And what is the opportunity cost of losing that idea? It may be massive. And I'll explain how I kind of try and go about dealing with this. But let's see what Mr. Cameron has to say first. Instead, you need to encourage the members of the team to offer their ideas first, especially those less inclined to speak up. Ask the quieter types, the analyticals and the amiables, and junior folks what they're thinking. One day, those junior members will become senior leaders, and the quiet types may also be required to run meetings. The more confidence they acquire under your leadership, the better, more effective leaders they will become. You know, again, I mean, it's like I feel like I'm reading the same damn book. I gave it away over the holidays. What is it called? It's by Jocko Willink. It's on leadership. Anyways, there are some parallels between what this dude is saying and what Jocko Willink is saying with regards to empowering your people and teaching them how to lead. Recommend that book if you can figure it out what it is. Maybe it's leadership equals, or no. Thank you, Alex. Extreme ownership. You're the man. You're the man. Going on. Yeah, and so I was going to share an example of how I try to bring that about, and I certainly can do a better job, and I can be more consistent at it. Is by trying to make it a regular thing where we do kind of like a round table at the end and ask if everybody. I mean, it's one thing to ask like, hey, does anybody have any feedback, and nobody says anything, right? But it's another thing to sort of get people used to you going kind of around the table and being like, hey, what'd you think of that idea, right? And you may sort of meet sort of timid eyes at first, but eventually people will sort of get the idea. And again, if you've provided them with an agenda, then they're more prepared for the meeting. But furthermore, if they get used to the idea that they might get called on, then they know that, hey, I got to come prepared to this, right? And you give them an opportunity again to kind of flex that muscle and learn to be leaders. And that should be the goal. You want to improve your people. You want to build your people. I'm reaching the end here. 6:26. I might even go over. God damn. Every meeting must include 5 key roles. This is what they're talking about. I don't imagine me doing this because it seems silly, but we'll read it anyways. The moderator, the parking lot, the timekeeper, the participants, and the closer. So the moderator is the chairperson of the meeting who, oh my God, I highlighted a lot, is tasked with ensuring that everyone stays on track, covers agenda items in the allotted time, and facilitates a quality discussion. His or her main focus during the meeting is to keep the discussion from going sideways. So from time going over or getting off track or not finishing and talking about an item in time so as to leave enough time for the other items. This requires a moderator to be skilled at interrupting discussions. I am terrible at this. I always feel bad, especially when I'm talking to clients or stuff like that, and they're like on a tangent. I'm looking at my clock, and I know I have another client right after, and I can't. It breaks my heart to interrupt them. It's also the moderator's responsibility to kick off the meeting with a quick reminder about the purpose before diving into the agenda. A good moderator will look around the room and observe which people need to engage more and which people need to back off a bit. It's up to them to prompt the more introverted employees to share their ideas by asking insightful questions to draw them out. The team leader could organize the meeting, but tap someone on the team to act as the moderator during the discussion. That's another way to grow your talent. Word. The parking lot. person is the one who keeps a notepad of the good ideas brought up, but that couldn't be addressed because they weren't in the agenda. How many ideas get totally missed because they weren't written down? And you're in a discussion with the rest of your team. You're not going to stop and write something down and waste everybody's time. So having somebody, and now I'm thinking this, I actually might do this. Having somebody write these things down as you go means that good ideas don't get lost in the shuffle. And that's important. Again, you want to make the best use of these resources, people, time, and money. The timekeeper's role is to ensure that each agenda item is covered in the proper order and within the time allotted. I think I got the first person and the moderator. Moderator is just to keep people on task, whereas the timekeeper is more to keep them within the times allotted for each discussion item. The closer, there's actually the participants as well. So there's more roles that I'm not reading here, but I highlighted the stuff that I liked. The closer, often the moderator will act as the closer. The closer is the person who assigns duties and timelines at the end of the meeting. Action items, something to do. You didn't just come to the meeting to listen. You came to the meeting with purpose, and with purpose to do other things. He or she will summarize everything that was covered and then go around the room to make sure everyone understands what they committed to and the deadline to complete each of said to-dos. First, participants commit to a duty and a timeline in front of the group. Second, clarity arises when the closer asks people to reiterate what they've agreed to and when. It's a nice thing because it creates a little social accountability, which is powerful stuff. That's what I'm doing, right? That's why I'm reading these damn books in front of people versus just reading them on my own time, is because I am being socially accountable. If I don't read a book every week, I look like a doofus. So I'm on a mission to read, and I'm on a mission not to look like a doofus. I've highlighted a lot here. My apologies in advance. I'm about to go on a tangent. A CEO leans into the future with the purpose of describing every aspect of the company in vivid detail, noting every area of the organization chart, listening to what the customers say, what the employees say, and what the media writes about the company. It's like standing in the future and reporting back on the details of it. This is a vivid vision. It's like a homeowner who shows rough sketches to the contractor and says, "Build me this. This is my finished house." The contractor then takes the plans and draws blueprints. Then the workers look at the blueprints and they attempt to recreate the vision. That's the purpose of the vivid vision. I feel like I missed something. We're talking about this thing called a vivid vision. I don't remember the context here. I read this page a little while ago. It's necessary to revisit the vivid vision. I'm assuming this is the vision for the company. Yeah, it's kind of like, where do you see yourselves in X amount of time? Actually, Powered by Search.com has an awesome vivid vision that they have on their website. Check it out. I think it's in the footer if memory serves. They did a pretty damn good job of that. I may just have to copy that. My apologies, Dev. Let's see here. It's necessary to revisit the vivid vision at the yearly or quarterly retreats so that we think, so they're talking about meeting types right now, I think. And one such meeting that occurs is around this vivid vision. So that we think about the future and plan accordingly for the next quarter. Furthermore, after we've established the vivid vision, we must work in reverse. So we reverse engineer to build a bridge to that vivid vision or to the future. First, we look at where we want to be in 3 years. Aha. And so there's some overlap here between this book and in this point right here, between this book and Double Double, which is another book that I highly recommend. First, we look at where we want to be in 3 years, and then we backtrack to the step before that future in 3 years. And then we go back another step and another and another until we reach where we are today. Once we reach today, then we know the steps we need to take to start us on our journey towards our vivid vision. Something I'm doing right now, actually, as I plan what 2017 is going to look for my team and for our companies and all that kind of stuff. Is I didn't even know it. I was building my vivid vision. The vivid vision must be shared by everyone on the team and remain in focus at all times. One thing that came to mind is I was going to, Alex, you'll hate this, change there's like these Slack prompts that come up when you log into Slack, and they're like, say, have a nice day, or something, like some positive, like affirming something or other, and change those to like our goals so that everybody sees our goals when they log in. They're going to hate that. If you and your team don't see the same vision of what the company will look and feel like in 3 years, then there's no chance the company you see in your mind's eye will ever come to pass. Alex doesn't like that at all. Vivid vision checklist. Oh man, I'm really sort of digging into the time. I'm gonna finish on this vivid vision stuff, and then I'm gonna move on, and then I'm gonna stop right there, and then maybe another day we'll come back to the rest of this. Pretend you've traveled in time in a time machine 3 years into the future on December 31st. You're walking around your company's headquarters with a clipboard in hand and a series of questions written on the paper. These questions will help you create your vivid vision. And so the questions go like, what do you see? What do you hear? What are your clients saying? What is the media writing about you? I'm exactly positive. This is sort of the framework that Powered by Search and Dev's team followed. The vivid vision gives you and your team a glimpse into the future, a future for your company. It doesn't tell you how to get there, just what it looks like. I have included a few Hall of Fame examples of what a vivid vision can look like, and I also have a copy of my own on my website, CameronHerold.com. And that's it. I mean, that's not it. That's what I'm going to go over tonight. And it's up to you to go over the rest. They start going into different types of meetings, like monthly financial meetings, weekly action review meetings, the daily huddle or the stand-up and adrenaline meeting, and so on and so forth. So highly recommend you checking this out. Now I'm going to be giving this book away. So I read a book and then I give a book away in addition to doing this whole thing. So I think Sarah and I, Sarah being sort of our show manager, that's actually exactly what she is. Her amazingness is going to post tomorrow, or I'm going to post tomorrow, or one of us is going to. A little summary about the book, just kind of like some action items, things like that, but also we're going to give it away as well. Not this exactly book. This is my book. But we'll order one on Amazon and give it away to somebody who liked or commented or shared or whatever our book of the week post, which I think we've already shared. So a bunch of people have already liked it. I appreciate every one of you. I appreciate everybody who came and hung out with me, even if most of you are my team. I appreciate it even more because you just got out of another meeting with me. So this digs into your night, but I appreciate it. Again, this Meeting Suck is by Cameron Herold. It's an awesome book. It's a quick read, unless you're me, but most people should be able to get through this in probably just a couple hours, something like that. I can't imagine what that must be like. It must be wonderful. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. If you liked this, like it. If you have a question, comment. If you have a longer question, send me an email, adam@magistrateinc.com. Otherwise, have a wonderful day, have a wonderful week, and we will see you next time on Wednesday, every Wednesday at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, which is 5:30 Pacific Standard Time. We do it on Facebook Live. We do it on Google Hangouts. And just go to my Facebook page, and you will find, not hard to find, but we'll see you next time. Thank you.